Hello everyone, my name is Makita Connor and my topic is chronic and violent juvenile offenders. I chose this topic because I am interested in knowing whether there are environmental, psychological, and biological factors that can all be attributed to juvenile crime and delinquency. I would like to begin with a quote. "The family is the fundamental building block of human society. Consequently, the foundation of our nation is only as strong as America's families. There is much to be learned about the effects of family life on delinquency and crime." And this quote comes from the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention. In regards to this quote, I chose it because I agree. The family is the building block. It is the starting point for many things. So before children engage with peers, before they go to school, before they are exposed to things outside of their homes, what they are seeing, what they are being taught, and what they are absorbing at home is very crucial to their development. I am a big proponent of social learning theory. I believe that children do model behavior that they see. So children are like sponges. They soak up and take in what other people are doing around them. So therefore, it is important to be mindful of what children are watching on television, what games they are playing, monitoring their social media activity, as well as being involved with children and their peer groups and seeing what other children they are interacting with and what those children are being exposed to. Moving on, the importance of my topic. So in the research I found some interesting findings to me was that out of 2 million youth that encounter the juvenile system, 50 to 75% meet criteria for a mental health disorder. And when considering those youth that are incarcerated, anywhere from 40 to 80% of these youth have at least one minimum diagnosable disorder. This literature also went on to say that juveniles that are institutionalized, incarcerated, they have higher mental health risk and mental health disorders than those youth that are in the general population. I believe this is concerning, and this is something that we should care about because we should look for an approach that is therapeutic for these children, not just a quick fix to calm them down, but something that will help long term with these behaviors and figure out what are the issues these children are experiencing themselves, while also working to keep the community safe. So I believe we have to collectively care about this, whether it is healthcare workers, policymakers, teachers, parents, caregivers. Everyone has to collectively care about the well-being of these children and the best approach to help them as they are dealing with mental health issues. So some literature review. In terms of homicide and juveniles, I found that between the years 2010 and 2014, juveniles were responsible for roughly 7 to 8% of all murders in the United States. And among these individuals, the age range was 15 to 24 years of age. And homicide in the United States was ranked the third largest leading cause of death in the year 2014. And Black males had the highest rate of death for homicide when compared to white and Hispanic males. So for some people, 7 to 8% may not seem like a large number. However, any amount of numbers of murder is something that we should pay attention to, something that should be alarming to us. So when I read this, many things crossed my mind. For example, 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds, where are they getting firearms or knives or whatever weapons are being utilized to perpetrate these crimes? Where are the parents or the caregiver, whoever is the guardian of this child? Is this child homeless? Is this child going home to home? Like what is going on that makes this child turn to violence? So some signs of future offenders, where some commonalities that have been found in some children that offend are physical abuse, sexual abuse, a chaotic and unstable family environment, parental substance abuse, mental health problems, criminal history, and witnessing violence. So again, as I stated when I began the presentation, what children are exposed to is very, very important. Therefore, seeing other people being violent towards each other or even being a victim of violence can lead to these children becoming violent themselves. So this is very important. In terms of violent offending, the research I found stated that although exposure to violence is key and a stable predictor of violent offending, it does not mean that youth will become chronic offenders. And so it is important to analyze individual differences in youth. So a chronic offender I would describe as someone that goes on to commit crime throughout their lifespan, like they don't stop. There's no stopping point. So it is very interesting to learn that, you know, although being exposed to violence, it does not mean that even with some children who may start off violent and aggressive, it does not mean that they can't desist and won't stop. So age and prevalence of offending. So in the research I found, it stated that delinquent behavior that occurs before the age of 13 is predicted to be a result of overt aggression. Antisocial behavior is developed in a small percentage of children with aggression, and 50% of these children have been said to be perpetrators of crime. So typologies of offenders, some may show a lack of guilt, absence of empathy, and constricted emotionality. In terms of ADHD and delinquency, I found this to be very important. So in adolescence and after, a diagnosis of ADHD has been found to be a robust risk factor for engagement in violent behavior. A major defining feature of ADHD is impulsivity, which appears to be the main characteristic of the disorder, which contributes to an increased propensity for violent offending. Also of importance, juvenile offenders and sex crimes. History of sexual and/or physical abuse for sex offenders compared with non-sex offenders was utilized in the study. So child molesters are said to have higher internalizing behaviors, while child rapists are said to have higher externalizing problems. So rapists are more likely to reoffend committing a non-sexual crime than do child molesters. Evidence supports the existence of distinct groups of juvenile sex offenders, example, child molesters and rapists. So it is assumed that rapists are more likely than child molesters to resemble non-sex offenders, particularly violent offenders. So I found this to be interesting because I have not analyzed any research that has differentiated between children and sex crimes until I decided to do this study. So that was interesting to know. So treatment options. So of the treatment options I've seen and those that have been said, a lot of the research was said to be promising. So I analyzed multisystemic therapy. So this form of therapy has been stated to be effective when treating extremely violent youth. And so the juveniles that are persistent and serious offenders are those recommended for this type of treatment. And this form of therapy originates from Bronfenbrenner's socio-ecological model. So this model contends that interactions between individuals and various systems are responsible for children's behavior. So therefore we have to take into consideration the community, culture, school, church, peers, family, and the child. Everything interacts together to produce children who may turn out to be offenders. So, and likewise, if children are exposed to positivity, those children will go in different directions. Those that most of their experiences are negative, they are likely to turn towards crime. So my research questions were, what circumstances drive children to become violent and commit violent offenses? So in terms of this research question, something I've realized is that the issue of juvenile crime is very complex. There is no one factor that can explain why some children commit crimes, why some children do not. As I've stated, some children may experience more than one issue. Like some children may be suffering from mental illness while also coming from a family where they're being abused, where they're witnessing abuse. So it can be more than one thing that leads some children into the direction to where they're committing crimes. My second question was, are there signs that should be taken serious indicating certain children will continuously commit offenses? So I believe in the instance where maybe therapy doesn't work, where parents implementing discipline doesn't work, different thing doesn't work, this may be a sign. Also, like children lacking empathy, seeing nothing wrong with what they're doing, or like just show no emotion towards them inflicting or causing pain to other people. So the methods that were used, it was an analysis of official data on juvenile arrest in different states. There were also samples of juvenile offenders as participants in research studies where interventions were provided. So the data was coded by grouping common themes together. So some results, it is relevant to identify and treat ADHD among juvenile offenders to best mitigate risk of violent recidivism throughout adolescence and early adulthood. Sex and violent offenses often constitute a small part of a broader criminal pattern. And among serious juvenile offenders, exposure to violence, predicted involvement in violent offending above and beyond other known risk factors, for example, community disadvantage. So some conclusions. There are said to be differences in prevalence by gender and race and ethnicity and age at first referral. It is essential to guide both resource allocation strategies as well as to identify the types of interventions that may be most effective with different groups of referred youth. So again, it is important to take a collective effort in trying to steer children on the right path in situations where children are suffering from mental health disorders. The earlier there's intervention, the better. So mental health was one of the main focuses for me, and I was trying to find as much literature as I can. And my reason for this is I worked in a mental health facility previously, and I noticed that the response would be to medicate children when they displayed acts of aggression. So instead of giving them longer therapy sessions, it was always medicate them. In the event where their behavior was really intolerable, they would be taken to the quiet room and given a shot, and this would cause some children to sleep all day. And of course, it just made some children more aggressive, being locked in a closed room. So I really think in the future it would be great to do some research and find out what other alternatives can be used opposed to medicating children. So once again, to keep the community safe, but also therapeutic approaches that actually helps the offenders. And that would be all. And thank you so much.